Okay, thank you, everyone. I'm going to be calling the meeting to order. The regular meeting at 2 o'clock on January 17th, 2019. Anthony, could you please call roll? Sorry, Anthony.
Ma'am, sorry.
It's after 2 o'clock, I'm just saying.
All right, Jack Feller. Here. Tony Kranz. Here. John Franklin. Here. Paul McNamara. Here. Jim Desmond. Here. Dave Drucker. Here. Joel Edson. Sharon Jenkins. Priya Bapato. Here. And who did I miss? Oh, City of San Diego. There was no appointment made. Absent.
Wait a second. I think we have just one thing. I didn't say I was here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I'm just finishing the
Rebecca
rest of the
Jones.
meeting. Yes, thank you. Here. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Tony Krantz, would you like to lead us today, please?
Please join me in the pledge. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Kranz. Okay, the safety and evacuation briefing. That will be by Anthony Flores, Clerk of the Board, Safety and Evacuation.
Okay, prior to my safety brief, just want to note that Ms. Jones is here for San Marcos as well as Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you.
In the event of an emergency or an evacuation, I will dial 911. In the event of evacuation, please do so using the stairs. Do not use the elevators. Once outside, please do not re-enter the building unless told to do so by emergency personnel. We have fire extinguishers on each floor of this building, and we also have a portable defibrillator on the second floor, on the first floor, sorry about that. And we have staff on hand trained in CPR procedures.
Wonderful, thank you. And Anthony, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So we have 4 public speakers today. The first public speaker will be Glenn Leader, followed by Dan Tota.
Hi, my name is Glenn Leader. I live in Carlsbad. And my question is concerning, well, the current government shutdown and what effect that's having on federal funding for NCTD.
I'm sorry, Mr. Leader. This is public comment and it's not an agendized item, so we can't actually respond to you, but we will have a staff member speak to you if you don't mind.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming today. Dan Tota will be our next speaker. We're bringing the microphone to you, sir. Or we're coming to sorry. We're bringing you up. I apologize. Followed by Joan Brown.
Oh, perfect. All right. Good afternoon, board. I'm Dan Tota. I was up here a while back again to discuss paratransit. In my hand here, I have an envelope, a return receipt envelope that was sent to MV Transportation. In this envelope, there's 4 LIFT bills in there. And the reason for these bills is the poor service from NV. And I'll give you an example. One day I had a ride scheduled from 8:10 to 8:40 pickup. At 8:30 in the AM, I called. They said my bus will not be there till 10 AM. This is totally uncalled for. We deal with excessive lateness from MV, and I have to use LYFT to get me to where I need to go for doctor's appointments. There's a problem with the staff not being trained properly. There is buses that come from Escondido to pick me up in Encinitas to take me to a Sandag meeting in San Marcos. There is the dialysis center that I attend. There's 2 patients that live within a block of each other. They get off roughly at the same time, yet they send 2 buses for them. I go to the Braille Institute in San Diego. There's 5 people that live on the coast. They'll send 3 buses for us. 3 of us live within 2 miles of each other, but yet they send different buses for us. You have clients sitting on the bus for up to 3.5 hours. This has happened on the 9th of this month. I was picked up in San Diego at 2 p.m. I didn't get home in incidents till 4 p.m. But William Belina, another client on the bus that I know very well, who was previously on the bus before I was on it too, the dispatcher, and this was Sole Transportation, your third-party contractor, told the driver to go back to La Jolla to pick up 2 more clients he was late for, and then take William home. That's 3.5 hours on a bus. Now, between the 60, 65 vehicles that Lyft has in fleet, plus the third-party contractors, there's 80 buses out there. There's absolutely no reason why anybody should be waiting more than an hour for a bus. Now, we do understand that there's passengers get sick, there's breakdowns, there's traffic, and this is a shared ride service. We totally understand that. But in this envelope, and I passed the letter on to you guys individually, dispatcher canceled my ride. Unknown reason. That was an hour and 20-minute wait. I'm not waiting an hour and 20 minutes. I have a life. And this is ridiculous to have MV treat us clients this way.
Dan, thank you for coming to us today and bring this up. Damon Blythe is going to address your needs. He's going to come and speak to you and get all the information from you so that he can follow up with you or for you. And thank you so much for coming today. We appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, our next speaker is going to be Joan Brown, followed by Lisa Hamilton.
Good afternoon, board. It seems it's the new year, so everyone here must be new, or plus the old ones here. I can see you all, but I can't see your faces, so I'll never know to whom I'm speaking. I would like to give you a couple of 3 incidents that just has happened in the last 6 months, and there were many more, but I'm just going to tell you 3 because they stick in my mind. The first one was on the 302 bus, and I got on at Plaza El Camino, and there was the man sitting in the first row, and he had been there when I got on, and he was slumped over like he was sleeping. So when we got to Washington and Coast Highway, he wanted to get off, and he was very unsteady. But I think that the bus driver knew that he was a little bit drunk, and she got up to help him. As she got up, the man was urinating, and he urinated all the way off the bus. So, but of course I can't see that. I have very low eyesight. But then a woman followed him to get on the bus, and she was going to sit where he sat, and everyone said, no. So that, but the bus driver did a good thing. She put the bus out of service, and it was only one more stop before the terminal. So that made me feel good. So that was one thing. The second one was, this was on the 318 bus. And the bus driver let this man on, and I think these are homeless people. His home was the wheelchair. So the bus driver put his wheelchair where it needed to be, and all the clothes and everything that was on it. And then the man got on, who was on crutches and only was walking on 1 foot, hopping on 1 foot, and smelled up the whole bus. I mean, everyone was opening windows. And I thought he was going to get down off of Apple Street, but he didn't. And I thought then he was going to get off the VA, and he didn't. He got up opposite where the hotel is and the shops are. On a hill. He could hardly get off. He was limping off the bus and left there. And as he got off, the bus driver got off and sprayed some spray, you know, the odor spray. And that was just very bad. Then the next one, I get on. This is the 318 again. I go to sit down, as I told you I can't see, and I sit in urine. And I get up right away because it's pretty bad there. And I go tell the bus driver that I just sat in urine, and she didn't, someone must have dropped some soda pop or something. And I said, I'd like you to go down and look.
Joan, Joan, we're going to have staff Brian Burkett speak to you, and if you have the specific instances and information, he'll definitely need that so we can address your concerns. But we thank you for coming here today and bringing this to our attention. And just sorry that you've
Yes.
had that experience.
Yes.
We're very
I-
sympathetic to that today. Thank you for
Yes.
coming. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Lisa Hamilton.
Hello, I'm Lisa Hamilton. I live in Oceanside. I'm one of the people that NCTD would really like to get on the bus. I really like public transit. I use it as much as I possibly can. I use the coaster frequently. I would use the 101 a lot and other buses, except it's so long between buses after you get out of commuter hours. The commuter hours buses are not bad, and I have not had occasion to ride the 318 often, so I haven't had the experiences Mrs. Brown has had. But if the NCTD wants to have people ride public transit, and the city of Oceanside and other cities are pushing to have housing built extensively near public transit, that includes bus lines. That's a major bus line. Who goes first? The city that builds the housing, and there are so many people that want to have cars and have no place to park, and they're supposed to be riding the bus, and there's no buses, or NCTD. I mean, I understand that you have a decline in ridership this last year. Well, one of the reasons that there's a decline is because it's so hard to get a bus at any time except in the very beginning of the day and the very end of the day. That's fine. Those hours are great, but you're stuck in the middle of the day. So I'd like to complain about the service. If you want people to ride and you want to increase ridership, never mind planning for the future with all the 4- and 5-story buildings that we're scheduled to get along the Coast Highway, and other cities are going to get the same thing. NCTD needs to be planning ahead for how to take care of those passengers, or those passengers are going to go someplace else, and it's not all going to be Lyft. Lyft is too expensive to ride as a full-time thing. All those people are going to be riding, I don't know what. But you do notice that in developing countries, the first thing people buy when they get a little money is some kind of motorized vehicle, a scooter, a motorbike, anything. And if we're talking about improving the carbon emissions, those things are not good for the carbon emissions. Electric bikes are a big possibility. But if we're going to have electric bikes, then NCTD needs to help out with the whole transportation problem and have a lot more possibilities for people to ride buses and combine those with electric bikes, or possibilities to get electric bikes on buses. Great on the coaster, not so great on a bus. And I have yet to ride a bus that had its bike racks filled. I've never seen anybody see a bus coming and say, oh, darn, I can't get on the bus because there's already 2 bikes on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. One thing I want to say, we're all from the city and then the county. We actually have the housing mandates given to us by the state. So unfortunately, we're at a position where we have to make sure the housing is built. However, we don't get any more funds for our cities or the district to intensify the use. So unfortunately, we're in a position too. I mean, we get property tax, but that's just about it. So anyway, wanted to clear that up, but we can have Damon Blythe speak to you specific to your concerns about specific routes. And he is outside, so if you could, we'll have him come and talk to you, okay? And thank you for coming today. Okay, moving on to the minutes from our meeting from December 20th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
I would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, we're voting. I'm sorry, Anthony. So our new board members, you have your little voting mechanism there.
Can you vote if you
Oh.
weren't here?
I don't think mine's working.
Yes,
You can vote
you
if you
can vote
weren't
for
here.
here. Absolutely.
If you've reviewed them, you can vote on them. If you were not here and did not review them, then you would abstain.
I'm hitting 5 or whatever.
See, I didn't say I'm abstaining. Someone has mine. I'm not sure who it is. Mine's not
Oh,
working. Who abstained?
I did. I did.
Okay, well,
You did. You said
we
you
gotta,
did.
we gotta work
Yeah.
on, give us just a moment,
Yeah.
give us just a moment. I didn't look to see what mine says.
Mine says Oceanside and I'm pushed every button on here. so I pushed two.
Okay, give us just a moment, technical difficulties. It's a blessing and a curse. Okay,
I didn't read
all right, I'm
this.
sorry, Anthony, could we start over? Sorry, everyone. We'll get this worked out.
I don't even know where the abstain button is. I was told it was two.
It's two.
And then to clarify, if we weren't at the meeting and we
I
read the
pushed
minutes,
two and
we
it
can
goes
still
Oh,
vote
yes.
yes or no. Okay.
You push two and it goes green.
I can't get anything to work.
I didn't vote. It's showing up.
Oh, my gosh.
Let's do a voice vote.
Okay,
Yeah.
can we,
All right, we'll
can
do a
we
roll
do a
call
voice vote?
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna start over.
On the motion of Board Member Dave Juker, seconded by Board Member Joel Essen to approve the minutes of December 20th, 2018. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Well, we may have had abstentions,
Well, abstain, sorry.
2 abstentions.
Okay.
No.
Sorry.
I didn't abstain.
No, it's Mac,
Oh,
yes.
I apologize.
That's okay. That's
Motion
okay.
passes with all board members present voting yes. Board members Desmond and McNamara abstain.
That's okay. We could go old school. It's fine. We're good. Okay, moving on to our consent items. We have 7 items for consent today. Do we
do have
a
a public speaker on.
Oh, I'm
one.
sorry. My apologies.
We have a public
I've-
speaker on item 7 for the consent.
Okay, so,
He can speak now and you can determine whether or not you want to pull it, or you can pull it and he can speak on the item when it's heard.
okay, we are bringing him we'll go ahead and have him speak and then we'll go ahead and take our motion.
Hi, board. Once again, it's Dan Toda, a paratransit user. I just want to thank you for the stack recommendation to go to $5 on the paratransit cap instead of the $7.50. As a businessman, I understand that fares need to go up. $1.50 is a big increase, but I hope to see a gradual increase in the future instead of a large increase like $1.50 again. And once again, thank you for lowering the cap on the paratransit to $5 per ride. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd just like to make a comment about staff and they're working very hard on this item. And so we were not required to raise our fares significantly as we had originally proposed. So with that, do I have a motion
I would
to?
move consent items 1 through 7.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll again do our, yeah.
On the motion of Board Member Dave Juker, seconded by Board Member Jack Feller to approve consent items 1 through 7. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those that abstain? Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, excellent. So other items, number 8 and number 9. There are 2 other business items. Anthony Flores will review item number 8.
Hello, everybody. At the November 15, 2018 board meeting, the board selected a nominating committee comprised of board members Edson, Horn, and Packard, with Ms. Edson being the chair of the nominating committee. At the December 20th, 2018 board meeting, the board nominated Tony Kranz for chair and Jack Feller for vice chair for calendar year 2019. And today we're here for the election of the chair and vice chair. The board recommends that the board elect Tony Kranz as chair and Jack Feller as vice chair for calendar year 2019. And with that, if there's any questions or discussion. We do not, ma'am.
Okay.
I
Any?
would move approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh, sorry. I'm just doing my normal thing.
I missed the second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Joel, sorry.
You can vote on this.
On the motion of board member Dave Juker, second by board member Joel Essen to approve agenda item 8. No, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay. Then we have, yes, I think I have another, I'm sorry, I'm going through my notes here. So we have, I'm sorry.
It's time for you to
So,
pass the
so now we'll pass
Am
the
I
baton.
passing the, oh, I am,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Goodbye.
Well, it's all you there.
Thank you. I appreciate the support, and I also want to thank Mayor Jones for her efforts over the last couple of years in leading the board. I think we've made some great progress, and I hope to be able to continue with that. So moving on to the next item, the approval of board and external committee appointments for calendar year 2019. And everybody got a list of the recommendations for committee assignments. And Anthony, are you going to go through these? Okay, very good.
Just to reiterate to the board, NCD has 3 standing committees: the executive, the PAF, the performance management, and marketing and planning, also known as MISPA. Sorry, turn on the mic. All the committees are comprised of 4 members. The executive committee is comprised of the board chair, the vice chair from the PAF, and also the chair of the MISPA committee. External committees. Currently, NCTD is a representative on the following external boards and committees. We have a seat on the Sandag Board of Directors as an advisory member, Sandag Transportation Committee as a voting member, the Sandag Regional Planning Committee as an advisory member. We're also on the LoSAN Board of Directors and the Joint Committee on Regional Transit. In accordance with Board Policy Number 3, committees and external appointments, the board chair will make a recommendation to the full board for approval of proposed appointments to these boards and committees. The committee appointment process. A board committee preference selection memo for 2019 was distributed to the board at the November 2018 regular meeting. The same memo was distributed to new board members as the election results came in, and they were confirmed, and they're also appointed to this board. The feedback received was presented to the board chair review, and the board chair made the following recommendations. Kind of hard to see here, so I will read them out loud for everybody. And this is also in your package as well.
Anthony, what is the schedule for the PAF committee and the MIDSPA committee in terms of when they meet?
We have the initial.
I know initial meeting.
Our initial meeting in February with a proposed work plan, and from that work plan we'll designate the.
But traditionally, they meet on what days?
The MISPA meets on the first Wednesday of the month, and PAF and the executive meet on the first Thursday of the month. Traditionally, sir. All right, so the PAF, the proposed recommendations are Board Vice Chair Feller now as the committee chair, Priya Patel, Sharon Jenkins, John Franklin. For the Marketing, Service Planning, and Business Development Committee, board members Edson, Drucker, McNamara, and Desmond. For the Sandag Board of Directors, board members Board Chair Krantz, board members Patel and Edson. For the Sandag Transportation Committee, Board Vice Chair Jack Feller, and board members Drucker and Jenkins. For the Sandag Regional Planning Committee, board members McNamara and Franklin. There is a Sandag Airport Connectivity Subcommittee. This is a new committee, and Sandag did designate our board chair to serve on this committee. We also have a seat on the LoSAN Corridor Board of Directors. We are recommending board members Edson and Patel. And the Joint Committee on Regional Transit is Board Chair Krantz, Board Vice Chair Feller, and board members Desmond and McNamara.
Very good. Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointments to the performance.
We have to do this by person because we do have to abstain from some of them, right?
So we took a look at this along with some of our policies and procedures that we've been updating. Since we've been doing the round robin of the abstention several years ago, there's been some changes in the Political Reform Act. So the reason that folks had to abstain before was due to potentially income from these meetings. Income from a government agency is either a stipend, a refund, or salary does not fall within the definition of income under the Political Reform Act. So there is no need for you to recuse yourself from this vote because there is no potential financial interest that causes a conflict.
Finally.
So the proposal here is to modify our procedure a little bit and to vote by entity rather than by individual. Hopefully that will streamline the process a little bit. But by all means, if we want to continue the way we've done it, that's up to the chair. But that's the staff's recommendation, is to update that procedure.
So the first committee would be the Performance Administration and Finance Committee, and if there are any comments or.
Go ahead. This is for Jim. Bill Horn said that he always had a board meeting on Wednesdays.
I'm looking at that right now.
And so therefore he couldn't be on the marketing committee. He always had to be on the performance and finance committee. So,
but
I don't know.
I'm also on the airport board, and they meet the first Thursday of every month. So I'm going to have to miss about 3 of the meetings on the MISBA, whatever, committee. I'd be happy to serve, but I can't even make the February one. So there's going to be 3 or 4 throughout the year that I'm not going to be able to attend. Does this committee meet every month?
The committee sets its calendar. I think right now, as it stands, that committee is going to meet 5 to 6 times during the course of this year. I know during our conversations, because I think you selected the MISBA, one of the things, and we've discussed it as a staff, about having the MISBA meetings on the same day of the board meetings, that we could accommodate that request. That's also a question for the other MISBA committee members, that if you all are willing, we could schedule all of those meetings to be ahead of the NCTD board meeting day, on the same day.
So if we had, the committee meeting would be maybe at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then you have the
12,
2,
1 o'clock,
and then you have the board meeting.
Right.
Well, if Ms. Bada would be willing to move to there, that would be easier. But I guess we can leave that up to that committee when they first meet.
Yeah.
But that would be, I think, I don't know, better. I'm not sure what the rest of the board feels about that, but it seems like if we could put them all on the same day, it'd be easier to make.
Well, it has to probably be a board decision.
The committee. It would be
just the committee.
The committee. It's
Okay.
the members. The members of that committee set their meeting schedule and meeting date, and so that is a decision for that committee.
I could send whatever dates that I'm not going to be able to make just because of a conflict with other meetings to the group, and then they could decide whether to move it to a different time or different days, or only meet 5 or 6 times around those other days.
Yeah, I think we will have the first meeting as scheduled, and then we will include the discussion as part of the agenda anyway, to have that discussion on the specific date and time. And so this will give people advance notice to start thinking about that, to be prepared for that discussion at that meeting.
And just to interject, because we ran into this issue this past year, staff is pretty flexible, which is great. And, it's really just the actual committee that's actually making that decision. So it's pretty easy, and staff has been great to work with us. So anyway, just wanted to put that in there.
Any other comments? Okay, so the first one, I would recommend that we look at, I will entertain a motion for the 4 appointments to the Performance Administration and Finance Committee.
Move approval.
Second.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes by all board members present for the meeting.
Okay, thank you. And the next committee would be the Marketing, Service Planning, and Business Development Committee. Looking for a motion for the 4 listed.
So moved.
Second.
Desmond and McNamara.
Motion by board member Jim Desmond, second by board member Paul McNamara, to approve agenda item number 9, the regular appointments for the Marketing,
Aye.
Those opposed? Those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present and yes.
Okay, thank you. Now to the external committees, Sandag Board of Directors.
Move approval?
Second. On the motion of board member Dave Duker, second by board vice chair Jack Phillips, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointment of the Sandag Board of Directors. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present and yes.
All right, Sandag Transportation Committee.
So I'll move the recommendation.
Second?
On the motion of board members Ben President, second by board member Dave Duker, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointment of the Sandag Transportation Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present and yes.
All right, Sandag Regional Planning Committee.
Move approval.
Second?
On the motion of board member Rebecca Jones, second by board member Dave Duker, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointments to the Sandag Regional Planning Committee. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present and yes.
All right, the Sandag Airport Connectivity Subcommittee, that'd be myself and Vice Chair Feller.
Move approval.
Second.
On the motion of board member Rebecca Jones, second by board member Peter Buckell, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointments to the Sandag Airport Connectivity Subcommittee. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, thank you. The Lausanne Corridor Board of Directors with Board Member Edson as the primary and the alternate Board Member Bhat Patel.
I move it.
Second?
On the motion of board vice chair Jack Feller, second by board member Dave Duker, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointments of the board members to the Lausanne Corridor Board of Directors. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion passes with all board members present voting yes.
Okay, and finally, the Joint Committee on Regional Transit with myself, Vice Chair Feller, Board Member Desmond, and the alternate as Board Member McNamara.
Move approval.
Second.
When does this group meet?
Doesn't.
It doesn't?
This is a committee that should meet with MTS, NCTD, and Sandag. During the 10 years that I've been here, we have never had a meeting.
This was set up to provide a way for MTS and NCTD to talk about issues between the two. It was active from 2000, when 1703 was happening, 2003 to 2002 to 2006 or something like that. And then when 1701 kind of took over, it was like, we don't want it, nobody wants to chat with each other.
It's likely to become a little more active with the latest out of Sandag, so.
We can actually meet, Jim, at Tower 8 on Sundays if you'd like.
All right, I'll move to approve the staff recommendation, or whatever, whoever, the proposed recommendation.
Second?
You already had one.
Did we?
Oh, okay.
On the motion of board member Rebecca Jones, second by board vice chair Jack Feller, to approve agenda item number 9 as it relates to the appointments to the appointment committee on regional transit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All those abstained?
Yeah,
Motion passes
exactly.
with all board members present voting yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to informational items. Item 10, receive fiscal year 2018 financial audit results and comprehensive annual financial report. Moon Park Lynch, Chief Financial Officer, will be making a presentation.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Presentation will be made by Linda Hurley. She's the lead audit partner for Macias Union O'Connell, who performed the financial audit for NCTD and a single audit. Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Linda Hurley. I did serve as the engagement partner for the fiscal year 2018 financial statement audit and related deliverables that we're going to present to you today. So I did prepare a presentation for you that we'll go over, but I'd be happy to answer any questions either along the way or at the end. So our agenda today, I'm going to cover our 4 deliverables and the scope of those deliverables, and then discuss the audit results. And the 4 deliverables that you should have received was the comprehensive annual financial report, which would include our audit opinion on the basic financial statements, the single audit report, and our required communications that we need to make at the end of the audit process. The 4th deliverable, the one that you don't have today that will be coming shortly, is our report on agreed upon procedures in accordance with the National Transit Database. So we are in process of working and completing that with management. So I'm going to start with the scope of the basic financial statements in our independent auditor's report. The financial statements themselves are prepared by management in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. They are management's financial statements. They are responsible for the content of what is in that document. Our responsibility as auditors is to audit those statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards as well as government auditing standards. In addition, because the compliance is so closely related to financial reporting, we also report on compliance with the Transportation Development Act, as well as the Public Transportation Modernization Improvement and Service Account requirements. So you do not receive a separate report on the TDA or the PTMISEA. That's all included. The disclosures are within the financial statements, and our opinion covers those. For the single audit report, we perform the single audit, and again, that is your federal compliance, the compliance over your federal awards. We perform that in accordance with the Office of Management Budget's uniform guidance. All entities that expend at least $750,000 in federally reimbursable awards are subject to the uniform guidance. For fiscal year 18, the NCTD expended about $29.6 million. The major program that we selected, because we don't audit all programs, we go through a risk assessment process as defined by OMB, was the Federal Transit Cluster. And as part of this document and this report, we also report on the internal controls over financial reporting and on compliance as it relates to the financial statements. And for the schedule of expenditures of federal awards that's included in your single audit report, we provide an in relation to opinion to the financial statements. That essentially means that we've reconciled those figures to the underlying records that support the financial statements. And then finally, we're going to report or give you an opinion on NCTD's compliance with the requirements of the Federal Transit Cluster. And then the other 2 deliverables, the scope, I indicated that our agreed upon procedures report for the National Transit Database is in process, and that we do have our required communications, which is our report to those charged with governance with the results of the audit process that I'll briefly go over. All right, so regarding the results of the audit, related to the basic financial statements, we did provide an unmodified opinion on the basic financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance that as your external auditors, we can give you that the financial statements are materially presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle. So essentially, this is a clean opinion. A few things I did want to highlight, and they're also in some more detail in Yoon's report to the board, is that there was a significant change in accounting policy and a implementation of a new accounting principle, and that was GASB statement number 75 related to other post-employment benefits. This is the retiree health care program. Similar to the pension, that full liability came on the books this year. Prior to the implementation of this standard, you essentially were accruing a liability to the extent that you did not fund the actuary's determination of the annual required contribution. Because NCTD does not have a funding method set up, so there's not a trust fund that's been established, or not pre-funding this liability, the entire total OPEB liability is now included on the financial statements, and that represents $4.6 million. So essentially, there was an increase related to OPEB liabilities of about $2 million, if you will. You had a former liability that's been relieved of $2.7 million, and then bringing on the full actuarial and accounting determined liability, it is $4.6 million. I also did want to point out that your net pension liability is $39.3 million. That's about a $3 million increase, and that's basically due to changes in actuarial assumptions as well as rates of return, and that's all determined by CalPERS, and you get an allocation of that liability. For our consideration of internal controls and compliance with financial reporting, we did not identify any material weaknesses in internal controls nor any material non-compliance. So we don't have any internal control deficiencies or recommendations to present to the board through our process. All right, moving on to the single audit, or your audit of federal awards. I indicated that the major program was the Federal Transit Cluster. It represented about 30.9 million of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. It's actually more. It's 104% of your schedule total, because your schedule total is about $29 million. What I do want to point out is there was a negative amount reported on the schedule of about 2.5, and that mostly related to the Federal Rail Administration funds. So it was anticipated, management had anticipated that those expenditures would have been federally reimbursable in a previous year. And there was an adjustment made by management to reduce the schedule this year for previous amounts that had been reported. And we also had them put a disclosure within the financial statements. A lot of times with these programs, there's pre-award activities, and there's an anticipation of how the federal government is going to fund your programs, and sometimes there's reallocations that occur. And so this was one of them that management had identified. Our opinion on compliance for the Federal Transit Cluster is unmodified, so that is a clean opinion. And again, we did not identify any material weaknesses in internal control over compliance related to that program. Finally, I have our required communications. This is a number of items as required by our audit standards that we need to communicate regarding the results of the audit process. Qualitative aspects of accounting practices, we did identify to you in our letter where you can find the significant accounting policies in the notes to the financial statements. We also described to you briefly the change in accounting policy as it relates to OPEB reporting. Accounting estimates, we're required to report any significant accounting estimates that management considered as part of the financial statements. We do audit that methodology to determine whether or not we believe that the methodology is reasonable in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And those significant estimates were depreciation as it relates to your capital assets, estimate of compensated absences, self-insurance claims, net pension and other post-employment benefit liabilities and related balances, and finally, the fair value of interest rate swaps. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing with management. And in fact, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Yoon and her staff. They had provided us everything very accommodating during the process, and we really appreciate all the efforts that they put in, but we did not encounter difficulties. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, to the extent that we identify any audit adjustments, we would be required to report those to you, and I'm pleased to say that as part of our process, we did not identify any adjustments to the books and records of NCTD. We did not have any disagreements with management. At the end of the process, management did sign a representation letter indicating they take responsibility for the financial statements, as well as provided us all the access and necessary information that we need as part of the process. We're not aware of any consultations with other accountants looking for second opinions or whatnot. So if there had been, in terms of management consulting with someone outside of us as your auditors, we would have needed to report that to you to make sure that those conclusions were appropriate. And then finally, other findings, there was nothing as part of our process that we were concerned about in terms of integrity of management, any independence issues. We do have several paragraphs in our letter indicating just our responsibilities over required supplementary information and supplementary information that are included in the financial statements. But nothing came to our attention further that we felt that there was a need to report to this board. And that concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any public speakers on this item? Okay. Any questions from the board? Board member Desmond.
Sorry. Thank you, Jack. The on this OPEB liability, which is the I guess post retirement healthcare liability, you said is a 4.6 million now. Is that look like it's going to grow each year? Is it going to decrease each year? What is there a trend? What's
It is likely it will grow, and the reason is that you do not have a funding policy set up. Essentially, your policy is pay as you go. So as liabilities for retirees come due, and just with your contract with CalPERS, you'll pay those as needed. But in terms of any accrued liabilities, you have, so unlike your pension fund where you're putting money away based on an actuarial recommendation, you'd still have an actuarial valuation for your OPEB, but you're not putting any money away. So the board does not have basically a pre-funded.
And I don't know if that's your place or not to make that recommendation that we do that, or you're just here to tell us here's what's going on.
I'm here to tell you whether or not you're reporting in accordance with the accounting standards. Funding policies are at the discretion of each government. Pensions are typically a little bit different because being part of a pension plan, they require that you fund based on the actuary. But for OPEB plans, most of them are employer specific. And so each employer makes that determination on how they want to set up their funding policy. There's many plans out there that are similar to yours where they are pay as you go as their funding policy. There are some that are pre-funded.
So, okay, I guess I would ask Matt then, is this a debt that we owe?
It is, as it's stated, it's a liability. We actually strongly considered creating what's it called? The
trust fund.
The trust fund. But you help me, what is the number? Is it a couple $100,000 a year? Yeah, it's $144,000 a year. And so we didn't feel there was a need to create a special trust fund for the $144,000 we funded through our annual operating budget.
But this is going to grow larger. I'm just wondering if we can hit a plateau instead of chasing something that's going to keep growing.
Well, so for us, particularly if you look at our baseline, and I'm not going to say I've dug all the way deep, but the starting point for the district was in 2008, call it 2008 when I arrived. we had 550 something employees. Then we contracted out our services. And so to me, when I look at the horizon for the district, at some point, we're going to realize the benefits of contracting out and only having that base population of 130 something employees that are going to be steady as you go. So call it a 20, 30 year horizon in terms of those employees till we will see some of the benefits. But at the $100 and something thousand level, I mean, of course, we can set up a trust fund if that's what the board directs us. But we've looked at it and didn't think there was a significant.
Does it look like over time? I guess I don't know.
I don't think it's going to go up. I don't think it's going to go up to something that becomes the man. It's not going to be the issue that drives our budget concerns one way or the other way. That won't be it.
Okay. I guess I'd like a staff briefing on this later. We don't have to do it now. And then on the pension liability at $39 million, what's the percentage that our pension is funded?
72.2%.
With this, so we're at 72% right now. Is there a floor or any triggers in our current pension liability that we do or add more, or do we put money aside in a separate 115 account or whatever?
No, I mean, over time, because the whole way that CalPERS has treated the pensions in terms of the discount value, there was a point in time for the district, we were 104% funded. And then as they implemented different reforms to it, and now we're at the 72%. We haven't, as staff or board considered a policy that says, at this floor level, we will invest additional dollars into the program. We're already making a supplemental payment into CalPERS. It's now a requirement that we're making additional payments to CalPERS. So for some of the backwards liability that exists.
Okay, thanks.
And I would add that, with what CalPERS is doing with the discount rate, they lowered it, but not probably as much as they needed to. So while it went up 3 million, there's a significant potential it's going to be jumping again in the years ahead. So are there any other questions? This was a receive and report, so I consider it received. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 11, we're going to receive a monthly Intergovernmental Affairs report, and looks like Executive Director Tucker is going to take it up.
This is going to be quick because the state just got in session, so not much to report there. I do want to report kind of what's upcoming at Sandag in terms of the fair ordinance to make sure that the board is aware of how that is progressing. A couple of weeks ago, we gave a presentation to the TC, the Transportation Committee at Sandag, relative to the proposed fare rate changes. The TC advanced them, and so the next step is for those fare rate changes to go to the Sandag board. So the first reading is going to be January 25th. The second reading is going to be, and approval is going to be on the February 8th, 2019 meeting. And the ordinance is planned to be enacted sometime around in March 2019. I mentioned this to the board that this is a very significant item for the district. We have been endeavoring to increase our fares for over 5 years. And part of the complexity for us in terms of raising fares is that per 1703, the ability to raise fares changed from being at the NCTD board or at the MTS board and shifted to Sandag. And that's a complicating factor because as an operating entity, it means that we don't have the ability to be responsive to when we need to raise fares. In the case of NCTD, we essentially have not raised fares in the last 10 years. We lowered fares in 2012 as part of our strategy to help our customers work through that Great Recession. And now, we're kind of at a point where we really do need to raise our fares because it's impacting our performance metrics. And so it's critical to NCTD that we raise fares. The discussion of raising fares can obviously become political, but one of the comments that we have made and shared with the board in the presentations that you can look across all multitude of different industries, costs go up, things change over time. And the fact of the matter is we have not raised our fare rates in essentially a decade. It's time to raise them. So I'm asking all of those, if you're going to be representing different entities there, Please let us know if you have any questions. We're more than happy to sit down and brief you further on it, but this fare increase is critical for the district. And it also supports one of the major goals that we've heard from our elected officials, which was fare simplification, which in reality is fare unification. As a result of implementing this fare change, we will have a unified fare system for San Diego for the first time in the history of both transit operators.
Are we able to
That's a complicated question because the fare increases require these independent analysis to make sure that we are not unduly impacting populations. So I would punt on that question. I highly suspect not, that it would still require us to do some analysis to make sure that at each time that we raise the fares, that is not having a disparate impact.
I think we ought to have legal counsel address that question because I want to support regular CPI. As one of the speakers today said, when you come out with a dramatic increase to getting base fares in 5-10 years, it really shocks people. But people expect small price increases, and if we keep up with what's published inflation for our region, then at least that's going to keep us from getting way out on pricing. So if we have the lawful ability to do it, I think we should do it.
Yeah, well, and I think the larger point, without respect to whether you tie directly to a CPI, I agree with you that we now need to be on a routine approach of looking at the fares for changes every 2 to 3 years to make sure that we're moving contemporaneously. For us, when you look at it, when we lowered the fares, particularly on the bus side of the shop, it was primarily on the base cash fare. Most customers don't pay the base cash fare. The base cash fare is $1.75 now. We're going to move it to $2.50. But guess what? The average fare that a customer pays when you look at all of the discount is about $1.06. On the coaster side, the fares are essentially going back exactly to the levels that they were in 2012. And so I do understand the impact to folks when you have to pay more, but in reality, from an NCTD point of view, this is just not a significant increase. But I do agree with you that we do, and this needs to happen at the SANDAC board level, that we do need to have a significant discussion about every 3 years at a maximum, the fare rates need to be reviewed for adjustment. Yes. Oh, no. So from a practical point, the answer is yes. It can't be automatic. You would have to go through all of the process. So the answer to your question, I get it now, is yes. You can't just make it automatic, but on an annual basis, you absolutely can review it and say, I'm seeking to increase my fares commensurate to the CPI. But you can't just build it in as an automatic kick-in. Okay. So that's one item. The other thing that a couple other items I do want to mention on the LoSAN agenda is a significant and important and wonderful item for NCTD. LoSAN is the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo Rail Corridor Management Agency. It's the agency that's tasked with managing Amtrak state-sponsored service. Sorry about that. So please ask me anytime you hear say acronyms. So there's an action at their board as they are the contracts management agency for an agreement that NCTD has entered into, will be entered into subject to approval of that LoSAN board that would support enhanced capital maintenance and on-time performance incentive. Long story short, federal law allows Amtrak to operate on any railroad that's kind of a FRA controlled and regulated railroad. Amtrak has the benefit because Amtrak's existing was predicated upon the fact that private sector railroads wanted to get out of passenger business. In exchange, Amtrak was created. Amtrak gets to operate on rail lines at the incremental cost and not the fully allocated cost. And so from an NCTD point of view, when you look at Amtrak under their shared use agreement / contract with NCTD pays us about 2-point-something million a year. We receive from BNSF for the freight trains greater than $7 million a year. This agreement will go a long ways towards leveling the playing ground. This agreement on an annual basis will add between $3 to $4 million a year of additional dollars to the district. So this is something very much we look forward to passing at that Los San Rail Corridor meeting. So it's a very good thing for the district. It will give us additional capacity to advance our capital projects. So it ties directly into another item that I just want to make the board aware of. We will redistribute this list, but NCTD and SANDAG developed a top 10 list of capital priorities primarily related to the Los San corridor. And those projects were both state of good repair. The top ranked project was the Bluff Stabilization Project, capacity enhancing bridge projects, and new equipment to support increased coastal frequencies. And so based upon us developing this top 10 priority list, we are going to be out doing a ton of outreach with our elected officials, and we've already started to seek funding for our priority list. We had our first initial meeting with the state, with the Deputy Secretary of Transportation, and we've all agreed to have monthly meetings towards development of a financial plan to help fund those top 10 priority projects that we have identified. So the key exercise that we all agreed to, that NCTD and SANDAG are going to identify the amount of dollars that we have available towards those projects. And then we're going to work with the state and federal sources to identify how the gap gets made up. This will play out over the course of the next 6 to 8 months. It will result in grant applications for some things and hopefully funding for other things within the state transportation improvement program. This is a significant and important thing. So over time, we will ask you all as board members to absolutely advocate on behalf of us receiving funding for this set of projects. It's critical to the NCTD. It moves us well beyond state of good repair and gets us into a point where we could really make a meaningful difference in terms of the quality of the services that we operate. So those are my items that I wanted to report under the legislative.
Okay, and you'll update us on the situation with the Illinois locomotives later, or?
Oh, I can do that right now.
Okay, that'd be great.
So for the returning board members, they are aware that we have the board approve the procurement of 5 new locomotives from Siemens. Those locomotives are being manufactured in Sacramento. Those locomotives won't get to us until 2021. So it's not like the Toyota, you can't just go to the lot and pick up a locomotive. So it will take us until 2021. So we're kind of in a conundrum in terms of our existing fleet has reached the end of its useful life. We want to avoid making significant investments in those vehicles. At the same time, we need to balance that with reliability of the services. So we have been looking at a range of options. And one of the things that is a potential opportunity is that the Illinois Department of Transportation had purchased some locomotives to support its state-sponsored Amtrak service. They actually are in possession of 5 surplus locomotives that they do not need for their operations. So we received communication from the state of California that they were looking to lease those vehicles. It was subsequently determined that NCTD, since we don't operate intercity rail service, intercity rail is Amtrak. That's just the easiest way to think about it. Since we don't operate intercity, we're not eligible to lease those vehicles because those vehicles were purchased with gosh, what were those funds called? ARA funds. And so we are not eligible, but the state and LoSan are eligible to lease those vehicles. And so we've worked with LoSan, and LoSan has submitted an application on behalf of NCTD. Actually, they've submitted an application, and we're pending receiving a package back from IDOT. It's essentially going to be a procurement process where you're going to submit a package. Assuming LoSan is successful, they will take possession of the leased IDOT vehicles, and then they will lease to us some of their state-owned equipment. That would be the best case scenario for the district. That would mean we would not have to make significant capital investments for the 5 locomotives that once we receive our new locomotives, the existing old locomotives have to be essentially destroyed. So that's what we're trying to manage and work through simultaneously, because we don't want to be naive and put all of our change in one cup. We also have developed a scope of work to go out to the market to see if there's others who have locomotives for us to potentially lease.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, just out of curiosity, how do those locomotives get here? Not flatbed.
No, they travel on track. Well, could be, but they will travel on tracks. They'll get hooked up typically to another locomotive as part of a freight move and brought here. The ones from Siemens will definitely be brought here, hooked up to other trains.
I was just thinking it'd be a fun experience to get a couple of board members on those if they were coming by themselves. So.
No board members operating equipment.
I don't want to.
Okay, we're moving on to the agenda item related to board member reports, comments, and correspondence.
Executive Director's report. So let me jump into that real quick.
Okay.
And so hopefully you have a hard copy of this. This is my report. This is a reminder that the 2019 Strategic Board Retreat will be held on Saturday, February 9th, 2019 from 9 to 5:30. Breakfast will be served at 8 a.m. with a closing reception from 5:30 to 7 p.m. It will be at the Westin Carlsbad Resort and Spa at 5480 Grand Pacific Drive. We are finalizing a formal agenda, and that will be distributed in the next coming weeks. I can tell you it will be a very focused agenda and provide significant and important information that the board will need to know as we move forward. Positive train control, I think Eric mentioned it a little while ago. It's a significant achievement for us to have completed that milestone of full implementation of positive train control. Positive train control illustrates the kind of importance of coordination and leadership from our elected officials. Positive train control was an $87.3 million budgeted project. The district put in, I know this is correct, less than 3% of local funds to fund that project. We received those funds from all discretionary sources. The project was delivered on time in terms of the federal mandate, and we do have additional dollars that we're going to be able to utilize in terms of helping us fully build out that PTC system. A significant achievement, as Eric said, we're one of 4 to be able to reach that milestone. 40 out of 40 something other railroads. Very, very important. It's going to bring us some critical safety benefits over time. And so I do want to thank staff, thank Mr. Rowe for their efforts in terms of making that project a success. The other thing I want to share with you guys, there are examples of public transit agencies making a profit. Yes. So we had our holiday train. Where's Mr. Holsky? I'll say, so we had it on Saturday and Sunday, December 8th and 9th. We had 6 trains, 3 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday. We sold 4,572 tickets, and we netted $9,000 as a profit. It's a good thing. The kids love that train. The adults love it. It's a very, very festive event. I would encourage any of you guys be in the holiday mood next year, take that train. Well, we can. This represents an increase over what we've done in prior years. It was gone from 1 to up to 6. So we can continue to increase it. But like most things in life, you want to be in a position, because I think we sold out in less than 20 minutes. We sold those 4,500 tickets in 20. Yes, but there's something to be said about when demand exceeds capacity. And so that's something we always have to balance. Let's see. Oh, yes. Staff has been in. Okay, so board of directors badges are available for new board members. And if you're a returning board member, you need to exchange your badges as they will be expiring very soon. Okay, so the badges allow you to ride on any of the system, any of the services countywide. So, I got to get that back. So that completes my report. Oh yes, I want to play the PTC video because I think it's important for the board members to understand how positive train control works. And Supervisor Desmond, you can tell that if it's consistent with the airplane.
So train accidents are often devastating simply because of the sheer size and speed of the engines.
Our Joe Little got a behind-the-scenes look at a new computer system that will help prevent accidents and maybe save lives in San Diego.
I'm inside a loud air-conditioned computer room at the North County Transit District in Oceanside, taking a look at this computer here. Every single locomotive in San Diego has this computer inside of it, and they're all talking to computers like this right here, making sure you're safe on the railroad. They're powerful machines carrying everything from cars to people.
Well, it's cheap. You save on gas and all.
Nathan Keith has used the coaster train for 5 years.
Hundreds upon hundreds of times.
Not once has his train been involved in an accident, let alone anything worse.
Obviously, you don't want to be in a derailment and all.
No one wants that, especially the North County Transit District, which is responsible for every locomotive on this rail.
So we know the grade, the curvature, the elevation, and the speed restrictions.
Eric Rowe is the Transit District's Chief Operating Officer for all things trains. His biggest fears? Derailments, collisions, misaligned track switches. Those all sound very bad.
Yes, they are.
Thankfully, the NCTD just installed the Positive Train Control System, or PTC. It's a computer on every locomotive that comes into San Diego County. Rose says it reads the curves, speed, and problems up ahead. And if there is a problem,
the computer would take over and bring the train to a stop.
A gentle stop, hopefully avoiding a catastrophic ending.
That makes me feel pretty good.
The one thing that's hard about that is it's something nobody will see, and hopefully nobody will know that's there.
But the federal government knows. It ordered 41 rail districts nationwide to install PTC by New Year's Eve. The North County Transit District was one of only 4 to meet that deadline.
It's a monumental achievement for NCT to have reached this milestone.
A milestone that could save lives like Nathan's by stopping these powerful machines in their tracks.
It's very nuts.
In Oceanside, Joe Little, NBC7.
The other 37 rail systems filed for extensions because they weren't able to equip all of their locomotives with the PTC before that deadline.
Yay. Very good. And as long as I have served on the board, which is coming up on 6 years, with PTC and the installation of it has been with us. And I really appreciate the efforts that went into getting us to this milestone. Eric, great job. And Matt, way to lead. So I'm sure the board joins me in thanking you all for your efforts. We're on to board member reports, comments, and correspondence, and we generally go around the table here. If you've got anything that you would like to.
I have none.
Great first meeting.
Good.
I did attend along with Rebecca, the North County Mayor's Supervisor meeting with Hassan, the new Executive Director. And, for me, I mean, there are some bumps here, but I believe it's a breath of fresh air that we're having of somebody at Sandag that is going to be promoting transit.
So I have a question on the PTC. Say one of the other rail users, the BNSF or whatever, what if they have to substitute a train?
So this is the key, and this is why that whole mandate was so difficult. All of the trains that operate on the territory have to be equipped and inoperable. And so they cannot operate a train that is non-PTC operational.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was one of the things, if you recall, that the board had a discussion because we had concerns about Amtrak. And at the end, our real concern was Pacific Sun, the short line railroads. And we sent a very nice, well-written letter to them telling them we were going to ban their operations if they were not ready to meet the mandate. And so that's the deal. There should not be, won't be the circumstance.
The other thing I wanted to mention is in 1896, the hotel that was right on the beach in Oceanside, just north of the pier, about where the Wyndham was, burned down. And we've been trying to build a hotel there since then. So that groundbreaking is on February 6th. So that's going to be a big deal. And there's going to be probably a lot of interconnectivity to the transit district and the connections, however they may come out. It'll be a great additional ridership, I'm sure. So
very good. Board Member Jones.
Well, this is my last meeting. Anyway, thank you to all of the, congratulations to all the new members, but thank you for a couple of you that have been around for a while as well. I've been on the board. I think you're the only one that's been on there the entire time with me, or I with you. Anyway, thanks a lot. And thank you to staff. You guys do a great job. I know our jobs aren't easy here, and it's been wonderful working with you all. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will adjourn. There are several meetings coming up in February. February 6th is the MSPBD committee meeting, PAF meeting on February 7th, and executive committee meeting on February 7th. Next regular board meeting is February 21st at 2 p.m. We are adjourned.